and good morning, everybody. Welcome to First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens, where I'm thrilled to serve as the third pastor in 80 years of this great church. I whispered to Tom, now how long am I supposed to speak? Because you put me in my spot. And you may notice there are no clocks in the church. I am the clock in this church. But there is one up there, and so I'm fine. Plus, I'm still recovering from yesterday, and so you don't have to worry about me cranking it up too high. But this is a marvelous privilege for us as a church to host this event. You'll see a young lady walking around with 1.5 arms, and she is the coordinator, and I want to thank Alexis Jackson, who's our events coordinator, for working with the staff. She just waved her half of arm. She was in a car accident the other night, and she's still working, so thank you, Alexis. I was thinking about those millennials that have a hard time affording New Jersey. I am the father of twin sons. They're 27. And their solution to the affordability challenge was to graduate from college and come back home. And they don't pay rent, they live for free, and New Jersey is quite affordable for them. And so I'm hoping that one of the outcomes of this meeting will be to create an affordability option for them, other than remaining on my budget and in my house. When they were very young, I met Tom. I lived in Ewing and served in Trenton. And when we came to this church in 1990, the boys were 1. And when we moved to Central Jersey, we lived in South Brunswick and rented a little townhouse while looking for a home. And one day, the boys were, I guess, 3rd, 4th grade. The doorbell rang, and I opened the door. It was a police officer. And I said, "Can I help you?" And the police officer said to me, "Is everything okay in this house?" And I said, "Everything's fine." "Why do you ask?" He said, "Because somebody from this address dialed 911. And I said, "Well, I can't imagine who would have called 911. I called my wife, said, "Dolly, did you call 911? She said, "No." And then my younger twin came running and said, "Oh, I called 911. He was in 3rd grade, I guess. And I said, "Well, Martin, why did you call 911? It was a Saturday morning." He said, "Well, Mom told me to make up my bed and clean my room. And in school the other day, the teacher said, if you ever need help, dial 911. So I needed some help, and I did what the teacher told me to do. I said, "You're going to need more help than that if you do this again." And it occurred to me that at a young age, my sons had been taught that when you need help, you call the government. You call the public officials. You call the people paid by the taxpayers to come to your rescue. And what we're here to discuss today is typically conversation that is aimed at the government. But I learned a long time ago that some of the greatest challenges we have and some of the greatest progress we will make will in fact not be led by government. Whether it's elected officials or whether it's appointed officials, there is such an immense set of tasks that government officials have to perform that's becoming increasingly true, that government officials are so preoccupied with the task that the performance of tasks can result in the future catching us by surprise. When I came here in 1990, this was a very small brick-faced church on the corner of Millstone and Route 27. Half of the children in the Somerset County Jail came from the public housing behind the church. Every Sunday morning, there were bullet shells in my parking space when I came to worship because of the violence that occurred between the young people on this side of Route 27, which is Franklin Township, Somerset County, and the young people on that side of Route 27, which is Middlesex County, the city of New Brunswick. We had demographics within the context of this region of prosperity that matched Camden. And although we were a mile away from the headquarters for the great Rutgers University, 45% of the people over 18 had no high school diplomas. There had been no major investment in the neighborhood in the previous 50 years. We had the worst housing stock. And here I was being invited to serve a congregation that was vibrant. We had 9 choirs, and Sunday morning the little building was packed every week. And the institutional priority for the members of the church was that the church that had been put together from 1937 up to and including 1990, a church that since 1975 had been raising money to build a new structure. The priority of the search committee for the new minister was to lead the construction of a new facility. And when asked the question by the committee, do you think it's appropriate for us to expect you as pastor to lead us in the building of a new facility? I said, I think so, but you can't build a new facility as a church in this neighborhood without taking into account the need to rebuild the whole neighborhood. That I'm not going to participate in a process that builds a beautiful worship facility attended primarily by people from outside of the neighborhood, in a neighborhood that is absolutely challenged in every possible way. And so we started the process in November of 1990, and now in 2017 we built a new healthcare facility in the building that formerly housed the Home News, 80,000 square feet, now owned and operated by the St. Peter's University Hospital, serving 120 pregnant women every day in the neighborhood. We have 2 new supermarkets in the neighborhood that had none in 1990. We have over 750 units of new affordable housing. We've driven out the drug dealers who literally control sections of the neighborhood. We have a new senior citizen, affordable senior citizen housing development where the first family that moved in was a veteran who had lived in his car for the previous 6 months. And we have built a new worship facility, 80,000 square feet, on the same site where the old church had been worshiping since 1937. And to do this, we had to vacate a street and purchase 13 houses. And after the construction of 2 new parks by the city and a new elementary school, after about $400 million of new investment in the square mile around this church, we had no gentrification, and no one who lived here before the revitalization was displaced because they couldn't afford to stay. So when I think about New Jersey, and I think about all of the challenges that Jim Hughes will describe in great detail, and the challenges that Tom Byrd will describe in great detail, the question for me as a pastor and a former state official is how can we take the principles that created an affordable neighborhood in Central Jersey and apply those around the state to the larger economic and social issues? And even more significantly, how can we take the progress we've made here since 1990 and make it sustainable for the next decade or 2? Because if sustainability is not a part of our conversation, then the affordable houses that we built and sold to first-time homeowners across the street from this church, well, even if the people pay the mortgage, the taxes will be so high they'll have to move. The taxes on my house exceed what would be considered reasonable as a mortgage principal and interest payments. And it's very, very complicated because we lack the process on a state level that we had on a neighborhood level. So I'm hoping that this movement of community and business leaders will inform government officials who are busy performing tasks, busy managing systems, busy making sure the balls never hit the ground. I'm hoping that people who have a vested interest in affordability at every level, businesses, employees, investments, I'm hoping that we can combine our minds and develop a strategy that really takes what we've done in the neighborhood and continue to do to scale statewide. And it's four basic principles. The first thing is we needed a plan. That's why we're here. We're here to contribute to the building of a plan. How long can we in New Jersey, with our 8 million citizens, have more school districts than California and Texas? How long can we have as much government as we have? When we built this church, we were keenly aware of the fact that we were in Franklin Township, which is Somerset County. That's 2 units of government. Across the street, where some of you may have parked, that's New Brunswick and Middlesex County. That's 2 more units of government. And Route 27 is a state highway. So to put a sign on my lawn, I've got to get permission from 5 units of government. I've got to pay lawyers and experts and traffic consultants and all kinds of resources that cost money. Because we've got so much government, and every little unit of government enjoys the power that they have to sit people like me down and say no. And I've got to hire more people to help me change the way I said what I've been saying to get them to say yes. We need a plan that takes into account not only the manageability of current tasks, but we need a plan that forecasts into the future to protect us from a future that does not look good. And if you think I'm wrong, you wait till you hear Jim Hughes. Jim Hughes will make you laugh and cry at the same time. And the plan has to be focused on people. When we put together our plan, every Wednesday morning for 18 months, the mayor of New Brunswick, the town manager of Franklin, and I met in my office, in my church, to develop a plan for the neighborhood. And every time we had an iteration of the plan, we met with the neighborhood. We did surveys of the people who lived in public housing. We had focus groups with small business owners. We wanted to know, what does this neighborhood have the potential to look like? What would you like to see in the neighborhood? And by the way, what would serve your interest best? And so our job training started by business owners saying if we had these kinds of people who could come to work every day and could get here even in a storm, meaning they were local people, our business would be stronger. We had the industrial area owners who said, if you can save this one building, which is the gateway into our community, then our entire neighborhood of industrial owners that have jobs can survive. And so we put together a plan that ultimately became a part of the master plan for both New Brunswick and Franklin Township, but the plan came from the bottom up and not from the top down. It was focused on people. We knew it was a process, and that's why this leadership from the chamber is so critical, because we have many moving parts that have to be addressed, and they have to be addressed simultaneously and not incrementally. We don't have time in New Jersey to wait 5 years per project. We need a comprehensive plan that has a process of major participation. So what we did here, the way we got a new school and got 2 new parks and expanded healthcare and got supermarkets was that we divided the neighborhood up into 35 bite-sized projects, and the mayor of New Brunswick, the council in Franklin, the pastors of the churches, the tenants in public housing, the business owners in small shops, all took interest in at least one of those projects, and instead of waiting 100 years to bring the neighborhood back, we worked in cooperation simultaneously so we can look around the neighborhood now. If you grew up in this neighborhood and came back here today, you wouldn't recognize it. And what you're going to hear today and be challenged to discuss today is a process of participation where partners can literally work simultaneously. And if we don't do it, then Pennsylvania and Florida, Nevada, which has no income tax at all, South Carolina, that has perfected the art of matching employment needs with educational priorities, Texas, that has attracted businesses that have grown exponentially, even through tough times. All of those states will just pick us apart. And we'll be left with a shell of a state that has even a worse structural deficit than we do now. And New Jersey will be more than an historical myth than a future prosperity. I'm very concerned. I've stayed here. I was born in New York. I escaped early and came to New Jersey as a child. And I've been here as an activist, as a pastor, as a government official, as a business person all of my life. And I travel every week to some other state. And I believe that I keep coming back because while we have more challenges than most states, we have greater potential still than any state I've seen. We have leaders, we have educational institutions. It was just reported that a good chunk of our higher education institutions are listed among the best in the country. With the minds we have at Rutgers and Princeton and other institutions of higher learning, with the research that's being done by the pharmaceutical industry, with the telecommunications industry in large measure, having assets here, with all of the education and the business and the financial institutions that we have in and around New Jersey, if we can't do it, no one can. We are the most diverse state in the country. We speak 60 to 70 different languages. We become the paradigm of possibility for a country that is looking for direction. And so my prayer is that you will take this very seriously, because history says that solutions at times like these come to government and not from government. There is a story I'll close with that inspires me all the time, where a missionary took a tourist into a valley of people who had physical challenges, in that some genetic flaw caused their arms to be stunted, and so they had this condition of short arms, and the government had provided for these people something as a resource to help them survive their circumstances. The government gave them a place of tremendous vegetation and equipped them with these long spoons. The idea was that the spoons would compensate for the brevity of their arms. The vegetation would make it possible to eat without working too hard. But the guide told the missionary that what was tragic about these people was that they were dying of malnutrition. The guide told the missionary that every time the people tried to feed themselves, their arms were short, their spoons were long, and so they kept missing their mouths. It was a social disaster. And on the way out of that same valley, the guide showed the missionary a second group of people who lived in the same circumstances, had the same genetic flaw, had the same resource in those long spoons. These people smiled, they were happy, they prospered, they were healthy, they were fine. And the missionary said to the guide, what's the difference between these two groups? One group has a challenge and they're dying on their feet. The second group has a challenge and they seemed to rise above it. And the guy said, that's what I wanted you to see. This second group realized that if they tried to feed themselves with their short arms and their long spoon, they'd miss their mouths and die like the first group. But the second group realized if when they pick up the food with their short arms and their long spoons, they would just reach out and feed each other. Then they could rise above their handicap, they could live prosperous lives, and they could overcome the challenge of their birth. We are here today to say, let us as business leaders, nonprofit leaders, community leaders, let us reach out and feed each other with ideas, feed each other with optimism, feed each other with humility, and rise above the challenges we have and become the greatest story of the 21st century in the greatest country in the world. God bless you and have a great day.